I am Justin 32, and never imagined my own family would try to strip away everything I worked for. After 6 years of overtime and ramen dinners, I finally bought my dream condo downtown. Then came that Sunday dinner, when my parents dropped the bomb. I should sell my home to fund my 29-year-old brother Patrick's latest business venture. Their disappointment when I refused was just the beginning. If you are watching this and have ever had family try to control your finances, let me know where you are viewing from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of people, learning to stand up for themselves against financial manipulation. Growing up in the Minneapolis suburbs, our family seemed normal on the surface. My father, Robert, owned a small construction business that provided us with a comfortable middle-class life. He worked long hours, sometimes 7 days a week, to keep the business afloat through economic ups and downs. My mother, Karen, stayed home to raise Patrick and me, managing the household, while Dad handled the finances. From early on, the family dynamic had subtle but unmistakable patterns. When Patrick brought home a C-, my parents celebrated like he had won a Nobel Prize. When I earned straight, as I got a quick nod and a reminder to stay humble. "School just comes easy to you," Mom would say, as if my hours of studying counted for nothing. The pattern continued as we grew older. I worked weekends at the local hardware store throughout high school, while maintaining my grades. Patrick bounced between hobbies, quitting football after 2 weeks, abandoning guitar lessons after Dad bought him an expensive instrument, and generally floating through school with minimal effort. College marked the first major divergence in our paths. I earned a partial scholarship to study computer science at the University of Minnesota. Even with the scholarship, I needed student loans and worked 20 hours weekly at the campus IT help desk. Those 4 years taught me the value of budgeting, time management, and delayed gratification. Meanwhile, Patrick attempted college 3 separate times. First, he enrolled in business administration but dropped most classes midway through the first semester. Then came his artistic phase at a private arts college, which lasted slightly longer, but ended when he decided the professors did not understand his vision. The third attempt was a 6-month stint at a technical college for audio engineering, abandoned when he realized it involved actual mathematics. Each failed attempt came with financial consequences. My parents paid for his tuition, housing, meal plans, and even a car that he crashed within 3 months. When I expressed concern about their finances, my father would bristle. "We take care of our family. You would not understand yet." After graduation, I focused on building my career in software engineering. My first job at a tech startup paid modestly, but I lived with 2 roommates in a cramped apartment to maximize savings. I brought lunch from home, limited eating out, and developed a detailed budget tracking every dollar. Within 3 years, I had paid off my student loans, while many of my peers were still deep in debt. Patrick's post-college years followed a predictable pattern. He would land a job through Dad's connections, work for a few months, then either get fired for negligence or quit because the position was beneath his potential. Between jobs, my parents subsidized his apartment, car payments, and daily expenses. When I suggested he get roommates to save money, Mom defended him. Patrick needs his space to think creatively. He is working on big ideas. By 29, Patrick had held 11 different jobs across 7 industries. His longest employment lasted 8 months at my uncle's insurance office, ending when he repeatedly failed to file important paperwork. After his most recent firing from a restaurant management position, he moved back into our parents' house, occupying his childhood bedroom while supposedly strategizing his next career move. Meanwhile, I had climbed steadily up the career ladder. After 3 years at the startup, I moved to a larger tech company with better benefits and salary. 2 more years of disciplined saving gave me enough for a down payment, though I continued living in my small apartment to maximize my savings. I researched the housing market exhaustively, learning about mortgages, interest rates, property taxes, and homeowners association fees. Finding my condo was a 6-month journey of weekend viewings and disappointed hopes. Properties in my price range often needed extensive repairs or were in less desirable locations. When I finally found the perfect place, I moved quickly with a solid offer. The 2-bedroom condo in a renovated historic building downtown had character-reasonable HOA fees and proximity to my office. The moment I received the keys, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The first 3 months of ownership involved weekends of painting, installing new kitchen hardware, and replacing outdated light fixtures. Every improvement made the space more mine. I chose colors and designs that reflected my personality, transforming the generic space into a home that felt like a physical manifestation of my hard work. Friends commented on how the place perfectly matched my aesthetic, modern and clean, but with warm touches. Having my own walls after years of rental restrictions felt like freedom. Throughout this time, my parents showed minimal interest in my achievement. When I invited them to see the finished renovations, my mother walked through with a polite smile but spent most of the visit talking about Patrick's latest idea to start a podcast about entrepreneurship, despite having never successfully run any business. My father examined my DIY improvements with a critical eye, pointing out minor flaws rather than acknowledging the overall transformation. Their reaction stung, but I had grown accustomed to being the child who did not need attention because I was already doing fine. I took pride in my independence and financial stability, even without their validation. My home became my sanctuary, a physical reminder that I could create security for myself through discipline and hard work. What I did not realize then was how my success would eventually become a target. How the very stability I had built would be seen not as an achievement to respect, but as a resource to exploit. The foundation was set for a conflict that would reveal the true nature of our family dynamic. The Sunday dinner that changed everything began like any other monthly family gathering. Mom had prepared her signature pot roast, the same meal she made for every special occasion since we were kids. The dining room looked unchanged from my childhood, with the same floral centerpiece and the collection of decorative plates lining the wall. I arrived at 6 o'clock sharp, bringing a bottle of wine I knew Dad would appreciate. Patrick was already there, sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up when I entered, offering a half-hearted wave before returning to his screen. Something about his demeanor seemed different, though. A subtle smugness in his posture. A barely concealed smile, as if he knew something I did not. Mom hugged me tightly, her perfume overwhelmingly strong as always. "So good to see you, Justin. You work too much. We miss you around here." The usual guilt-laden greeting despite my regular visits. Dad emerged from his office, shaking my hand firmly. "The prodigal son returns," he joked, though the comment carried an edge. I had never been the one who left or squandered resources, but somehow, in our family narrative, Patrick was the beloved younger son, while I was cast as distant and detached. Throughout dinner, I noticed unusual behavior from my parents. Mom was excessively attentive, refilling my wine glass before it was empty, heaping second helpings onto my plate without asking. Dad asked detailed questions about my job, my condo maintenance costs, and whether property values in my area were rising. At the time, I attributed their interest to simple curiosity, not recognizing the reconnaissance mission underway. Patrick remained unusually quiet during the meal, contributing only when the conversation turned to his future plans. "I have been networking with some big players," he said vaguely. "Really exciting opportunities in the tech space." He glanced at me with that same smug expression when mentioning tech, as if invading my professional territory. As Mom served dessert and apple pie with ice cream, Dad cleared his throat dramatically. "Your mother and I wanted to have you both here because we have some exciting news to share." He placed his hand over Patrick's shoulder. "Your brother has been offered an incredible opportunity with a tech startup that could really take off." Mom beamed at Patrick. "Tell your brother about it, sweetie." Patrick straightened up, adopting what I can only describe as his business voice, a deeper, more measured tone he used when trying to impress people. "It is a revolutionary platform, connecting independent investors with entrepreneurs. I would be heading their financial division, overseeing capital allocation and investment strategies." The description was a word salad of business jargon, containing no actual information about the company's products, services, or business model. After years in tech, I had developed a finely tuned detector for substance-free pitches. "That sounds interesting," I said cautiously. "What is the company called? What is their current funding situation?" Patrick waved dismissively. "We are still in stealth mode, very hush-hush. But the potential is enormous. We are talking million-dollar returns within 18 months. Dad jumped in before I could ask more questions. "The opportunity requires some initial investment, of course. All great businesses do. And then came the bomb. "We have been discussing as a family how we could support Patrick in this venture," Mom said, reaching for my hand across the table. "And we thought, since you are doing so well with your job, maybe you could help your brother take this leap." "I appreciate the thought," I said carefully, "but I am not in a position to invest right now. Most of my savings went into my condo, and I am still building my emergency fund back up." Dad leaned forward, his expression intensifying. "That is actually what we wanted to talk to you about. Your condo has probably appreciated since you bought it, right?" A cold feeling spread through my chest as I began to understand the direction of the conversation. Somewhat, yes, but not significantly. In just 18 months. "Well," Mom continued, her voice sweet, but her eyes calculating, "we were thinking you could sell your condo, use the proceeds to invest in Patrick's business opportunity, and move into a rental temporarily, just until the business takes off, and everyone gets their return." The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at my parents, waiting for the punchline, the acknowledgement that they were joking. It never came. "You want me to sell my home?" I finally said, "To give the money to Patrick for a business that does not even have a name." "Not give," Dad corrected quickly. "Invest. You would be a major shareholder. Right, Patrick?" Patrick nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely." I was thinking a 15% stake. Very generous considering the projected valuation. I looked around at their expectant faces and felt like I had stepped into an alternate reality. This cannot be serious. "Do you understand what you are asking? I spent years saving for that down payment. I put thousands of dollars and countless hours into renovations." "We know it is a big ask," Mom said, her voice dropping into the guilt-inducing tone I knew too well. "But family supports family. When Patrick needed braces, we canceled our vacation. When you needed your college application fees, we found a way." "My application fees were $400, I said incredulously. "You are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And my literal home." Patrick sighed dramatically. "See, I told you he would not get it. Justin has always been risk-averse. No entrepreneurial spirit." "It is not about risk," I countered, my voice rising, despite efforts to stay calm. "It is about reality. You have never successfully held a job for more than 8 months. You have no experience in tech or finance. You have no business plan, no named company, no details whatsoever. And you expect me to sell my home on blind faith?" Dad's face darkened. "Watch your tone, Justin. Your brother is finally finding his path, and instead of supporting him, you are tearing him down." "I am being realistic," I insisted. "Has anyone done any due diligence on this company? Have you seen financial projections, customer acquisition strategies, competitive analysis?" "Not everything needs a spreadsheet," Mom snapped. "Sometimes family loyalty matters more than numbers." The argument escalated from there. I tried repeatedly to introduce logic and financial reality into the conversation, only to be accused of being cold, calculating, and unsupportive. Mom eventually resorted to tears, retreating to the kitchen, while Dad followed to comfort her. Patrick leaned across the table. "You have always been jealous of me," he said quietly. "You cannot stand the idea that I might actually succeed at something bigger than your safe little coding job." When my parents returned, Dad delivered the ultimatum. "Justin, we have raised you to value family above all else. I think you need some time to reconsider your priorities. Think about what family really means." I drove home that night in a fog of disbelief and anger. The audacity of their request was stunning enough, but their reaction to my refusal was what truly shook me. In their eyes, my unwillingness to sacrifice my financial security for Patrick's unvetted opportunity made me the villain. That night, I lay awake in my condo, the home they wanted me to surrender, questioning my own judgment. Was I being selfish? Was this normal in other families? The doubt crept in, as it always did when confronting my family's dynamics. By morning, though, one thing was clear: I would not sell my home, whatever the consequences might be. The week following that disastrous dinner, my phone became a source of anxiety. Mom called daily, sometimes multiple times, each conversation a carefully orchestrated guilt trip. She would start with casual questions about my day, then seamlessly transition to Patrick's opportunity and how much it would mean to everyone if I reconsidered. Your brother has been in his room researching business strategies for 14 hours straight, she reported. As if Patrick's sudden interest in work deserved applause. He is so passionate about this venture. I have never seen him so focused. When emotional appeals failed to sway me, Dad took a different approach. He called under the pretense of asking my advice about replacing the water heater in their house, then casually mentioned Patrick's business. I have been thinking about your concerns, he said in a reasonable tone. What if we structured it more formally? You could sell the condo, invest the money, and we would draw up paperwork, making it a loan rather than an investment. Patrick could pay you back with interest once the business takes off. When I pointed out that unsecured personal loans to family members with no income were extremely risky, he accused me of thinking like a banker instead of a brother. The conversation ended with his heavy sigh and a pointed, "Your grandfather would have been disappointed by this attitude." The pressure expanded beyond my parents. Suddenly, relatives who rarely contacted me were sending messages and calling. My Aunt Lisa Mom's sister called on Tuesday evening. "I just wanted to check on you," she began innocently enough. "Your mom mentioned you have been under stress lately." Within minutes, she was extolling the virtues of family support and recounting how her husband had once helped his brother start a restaurant. Family businesses build generational wealth, she concluded. Patrick has such brilliant ideas. He just needs someone to believe in him. When I pressed for details about these brilliant ideas, she admitted she did not know specifics, but insisted. Your parents would not be this excited if it was not legitimate. By the weekend, I had received calls from 2 uncles, another aunt, and even my elderly grandmother, all expressing some version of concern about my unwillingness to help Patrick. It became clear that my parents had shared their version of events, widely casting me as the selfish brother hoarding resources while Patrick's golden opportunity withered on the vine. The narrative they spread portrayed Patrick as a misunderstood genius, finally finding his calling, while I was the cold-hearted brother, too attached to material possessions to support family. The distortions were subtle, but effective, emphasizing my financial stability, while minimizing the sacrifice they were asking me to make. Social media became another battleground. Cousins I had not spoken to in years suddenly posted memes about family first and tagged me. My mother shared articles about successful family businesses with captions like, "Blood is thicker than water." The passive aggression was obvious, but difficult to confront directly. Patrick took a more direct approach. His Instagram stories featured cryptic quotes about people who cannot see opportunities and let fear limit their potential. He never named me, maintaining plausible deniability, but the timing and frequency left little doubt about his target. Then came the direct messages. Late one night, after presumably a few drinks, Patrick sent a paragraph-long text accusing me of always undermining him and being threatened by his potential success. "You have your safe little job and your safe little condo," he wrote. "Some of us want more than mediocrity." The constant barrage of guilt, manipulation, and accusations began to take a psychological toll. I found myself second-guessing my decision. Was I being unreasonable? Was my attachment to my home preventing my brother from succeeding? The questions haunted me during sleepless nights. Work performance suffered as I struggled to concentrate. During a team meeting, my manager pulled me aside afterward to ask if everything was okay. "You seem distracted lately," he noted with concern. "Not like you to miss those bugs in the review." The situation reached a breaking point when I met my friend Alex for drinks. Alex had known my family for years and understood the dynamics better than most. When I explained the situation, his reaction was immediate and clarifying. "Are you kidding me?" he exclaimed. "They want you to sell your home to fund Patrick's mystery business. That is absolutely insane, Justin." Hearing someone else express shock at the request helped restore my perspective. Alex continued, "Think about it this way. If a bank would not loan Patrick money based on his track record and business plan, why should you invest your life savings and home equity?" That simple framing crystallized the issue. I decided to conduct a clear-eyed financial analysis of what my parents were actually asking. Selling now would mean paying realtor fees, closing costs, and potential capital gains taxes. The housing market had cooled slightly, meaning I might not even recoup my initial investment plus renovations. Even if I cleared a small profit, I would need to find a rental in a market with skyrocketing prices. Based on current rates, my housing costs would increase while building no equity. Meanwhile, I would be handing over my hard-earned capital to Patrick, who had demonstrated no financial responsibility throughout his entire adult life. I researched startup success rates, finding that over 60% failed within the first 3 years. Given Patrick's history of abandoning projects when they became difficult, the odds seemed even worse. When I tried asking for basic information about the business like revenue projections or competitor analysis, Patrick dismissed my questions as getting too into the weeds. The financial reality check strengthened my resolve. I decided to establish clear boundaries, limiting calls with my parents to once weekly and muting family members on social media. I drafted a careful email to relatives who had contacted me politely but firmly explaining that my financial decisions were not up for family discussion. The response was immediate and hostile. Mom left a tearful voicemail about how I was pulling away from the family when we need unity. Dad sent a terse text, "Family matters should stay within the family. Disappointed you would air grievances to others." Patrick was more direct. "Way to trash me to the whole family," he texted. "Real mature. Guess tearing me down makes you feel better about your own mediocre life." I did not respond to any of these messages, maintaining the boundaries I had set. The space allowed me to strengthen my conviction that I was making the responsible choice, not just for myself, but ultimately for my family too. Enabling Patrick's financial irresponsibility would only lead to larger problems down the road. What I did not realize then was that my refusal had not deterred my family at all. They had simply decided to pursue their plans without my participation, creating an even more troubling situation that would soon come to light. 3 weeks after establishing my boundaries, I received a LinkedIn notification that stopped me cold. Congratulate Patrick Hamilton on his new position as Chief Financial Officer at Hamilton Family Enterprises. At first, I assumed Patrick had simply inflated his resume, a common enough practice. But curiosity led me to click through to this company I had never heard of. The LinkedIn page was sparse, but featured a professional-looking logo and a vague description. Hamilton Family Enterprises specializes in strategic investments and capital management for select clients and ventures. The company claimed to have been founded 2 years ago, though this was the first I had heard of it. Listed as company headquarters was an address I immediately recognized as my parents' home. The employee count showed 2 to 10 employees, with my father listed as CEO and Patrick as CFO. My mother did not appear, though her distinctive writing style was evident in the company description. Confused and concerned, I began investigating further. A Google search for Hamilton Family Enterprises returned only a recently created Facebook page and a basic website. The website featured stock photos of handshakes and city skylines with the same vague language about strategic investments and capital management solutions. The About Us page included brief biographies of my father and Patrick. Dad's accurately described his 30 years in construction, but dramatically overstated the size and scope of his building company. Patrick's bio was more concerning, claiming he had extensive experience in financial management and had consulted for numerous startups in the technology sector. Neither statement had any basis in reality. Most troubling was the investment opportunities page, which hinted at exclusive investment options for qualified investors and featured a contact form for scheduling a confidential consultation. I searched business registration records for Minnesota and found nothing under Hamilton Family Enterprises. No tax ID, no business license, no corporate registration. For all intents and purposes, this company existed only online, a digital facade with no legal standing. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My family had created a fictional company to legitimize Patrick's non-existent business acumen. But why? What was the end game of this elaborate fiction? The answer came when I called my Uncle Mark, Dad's younger brother, and the family member I trusted most. After swearing him to confidentiality, I described what I had discovered. "I was afraid something like this might happen," he sighed. "Your dad approached me about investing in this new venture last week. He showed me business cards, a fancy presentation folder, the works. Said Patrick had uncovered an investment opportunity that could yield 20% returns within a year." My stomach dropped. They are actually seeking investors. With what business model? Something about connecting entrepreneurs with capital. Very vague. I asked for a business plan, and your dad got defensive, said I should trust family. When I declined, he hinted that you were coming on board soon, and I would regret missing the opportunity. The conversation revealed the full extent of my family's scheme. They had created this shell company not just to give Patrick a prestigious title, but to actually solicit investments from family, friends, and business associates. They were using my father's legitimate business reputation in construction to lend credibility to this financial venture, despite having no experience in that sector. Most shocking was learning that my parents had invested a significant portion of their retirement savings as seed capital. Uncle Mark estimated they had already put in at least $60,000 to create marketing materials, build the website, and establish the appearance of legitimacy. Your dad cashed out one of his CDs early, paid a penalty, and everything Uncle Mark explained. Your mom is all in on this too. She has been calling everyone in her social circle, setting up lunch meetings for Patrick to pitch them. The legal and ethical implications were staggering. Soliciting investments for a non-existent business could constitute fraud. Using my father's legitimate business connections to voucher for Patrick's fictional expertise bordered on criminal misrepresentation. And implicating me as a future investor, without my knowledge, crossed every boundary of respect and honesty. That evening, I received an email from a former colleague named Mike, who now worked at a different tech company. Hey, Justin, your brother reached out about some investment opportunity with your family's firm. Is this something you are involved with? Wanted to check with you first. Attached was an email from Patrick using a professional-looking address from hamiltonenterprises.com. The message positioned the opportunity as a chance to get in early on a venture my brother Justin and I are developing with our father. It specifically mentioned my role as a software engineer at a successful tech company, clearly attempting to leverage my professional reputation. I called my parents that night, unable to contain my anger and concern. Dad answered his voice guarded when he heard mine. What exactly is Hamilton Family Enterprises? I asked without preamble. A long pause followed. It is a family business, something Patrick and I have been developing. There is no registered business under that name, I countered, and Patrick is contacting my professional connections, claiming I am involved. Mom took over the call, her voice defensive. We are just helping Patrick establish himself. Everyone exaggerates a little on LinkedIn. It is not a big deal. It is a huge deal if you are soliciting investments for a non-existent company. That is fraud, Mom. Do not be so dramatic, Dad interjected. We are just helping contacts find investment opportunities. Patrick has connections with several promising startups. What startups, names, business plans, anything concrete? The conversation devolved from there. My parents alternated between defending their actions as just getting things started and accusing me of trying to sabotage Patrick's career out of jealousy. They refused to acknowledge the potential legal consequences of their actions or the ethical breach of using my name and reputation without permission. Patrick's response came later that night, in a series of angry voicemails. Way to try to tank everything before it even gets started, he slurred, clearly intoxicated. You have always been threatened by me. Cannot stand the thought of me being successful. Well, guess what? Dad believes in me, even if you do not. I ended the call feeling sick with worry. My family had crossed from manipulative behavior into potentially illegal territory, and they had dragged my professional reputation into their scheme. The situation had escalated beyond a private family dispute into something that could have serious consequences for all involved, including me. The week following my discovery of Hamilton Family Enterprises brought escalating complications. First came a message from my team lead at work, forwarding an email from Patrick, inviting him to an exclusive investment presentation at a local restaurant. Is this something you are promoting? My colleague asked. Seemed odd to get this out of the blue. Then a college friend texted a screenshot of a similar invitation, asking if this was legitimate. 2 more contacts reached out with variations of the same question, all having received solicitations from Patrick mentioning my name as someone already involved in the venture. The most alarming incident occurred when my director stopped by my desk, closing the door to the small meeting room where I was working. Justin, I received a call from someone named Patrick Hamilton, saying you had suggested he contact me about an investment opportunity. He mentioned you had provided my name as a reference. My heart sank. I absolutely did not, I assured him. My brother is involved in something questionable, and I have been trying to distance myself from it. I apologize for the unprofessional contact. The director was understanding, but concerned. Family can be complicated. Just make sure this does not impact our work here or the company's reputation. That evening, I received a text from my mother reminder Grandma's 80th birthday celebration Saturday at 2. Everyone will be there. She specifically asked about you. I had completely forgotten about my grandmother's birthday gathering amid the chaos. My first instinct was to make an excuse, but my grandmother had always shown me kindness and understanding. She deserved my presence on her special day, regardless of the current family tension. Saturday arrived, and I entered my parents' backyard with a gift for Grandma and considerable apprehension. The scene appeared normal at first glance, folding tables decorated with floral tablecloths, balloons tied to chairbacks, relatives mingling with paper plates of potluck dishes. My grandmother sat in a cushioned chair of honor, receiving visitors with a gracious smile. After greeting her and presenting my gift, I attempted to maintain a low profile, making polite conversation with cousins I rarely saw. My strategy of avoiding confrontation crumbled when Uncle Bill Dad's older brother approached with a cocktail in hand. There he is. The tech genius himself, he announced loudly. Your father tells me you are still on the fence about the family business. You should reconsider, son. Family Ventures built the Rockefeller fortune you know. Before I could respond, Aunt Carol joined us. Justin? I was just talking to Patrick about the investment presentation. Fascinating stuff. Your brother really knows his financial models. It became clear that my grandmother's birthday celebration had a secondary purpose, a family-wide pressure campaign. Throughout the afternoon, various relatives approached with subtle and not-so-subtle comments about Hamilton Family Enterprises. Some had already invested small amounts. Others were strongly considering it after Patrick's impressive presentation. Patrick himself worked the gathering like a politician dressed in an ill-fitting suit with a company logo pin on his lapel. He distributed business cards and spoke confidently about market penetration strategies and first-mover advantage in conversations around the yard. Our parents beamed proudly from the sidelines, occasionally steering potentially wealthy relatives in his direction. The breaking point came during the toast to my grandmother. After appropriate birthday wishes, my father unexpectedly expanded his speech. While we are all gathered as family, I want to share some exciting news. Hamilton Family Enterprises is officially launching its first major investment fund next month. He raised his glass toward Patrick. My youngest son has shown incredible business acumen in structuring this opportunity. We are keeping initial investments within the family circle, so talk to Patrick today if you want to secure your position. Murmurs of interest rippled through the gathering. My grandmother looked confused, turning to me with a questioning glance. Something in her expression, a mixture of concern and trust, compelled me to speak up. Before anyone makes financial decisions, I said, standing slowly, I think there are some important facts that should be clarified. The yard fell silent. My father's expression hardened. My mother whispered something urgent to a nearby aunt. Hamilton Family Enterprises is not a registered business entity, I continued calmly. It has no business license, no tax ID, no official standing. More importantly, neither Dad nor Patrick has any experience in investment management or financial services. Patrick stepped forward. That is absolutely not true. We are in the process of registration. Justin is just upset because he wants more control than we are offering him. I am not involved in any way, I countered, addressing the gathered family directly. My name has been used without permission to lend credibility to this venture. I have never seen a business plan, financial projections, or any concrete details about what this company actually does. Uncle Mark cleared his throat from the back of the gathering. I asked for those same details last week and was told they were confidential. Seems odd for a family business, Robert. My father's face flushed. This is hardly the time or place, Justin. We are celebrating your grandmother's birthday. I agree, I replied, which is why I think everyone deserves honest information before being asked to invest their hard-earned money in a company that exists only on LinkedIn and a hastily created website. Grandma spoke up, her voice frail but clear. Robert, is what Justin's saying true? Is this business properly established? Dad hesitated, caught between maintaining the facade and lying directly to his mother. We are in the early stages, Mom. Every business starts somewhere. But you are taking investments now, I pointed out. Without proper registration, without transparency, without the qualifications to manage other people's money. The gathering dissolved into factions. Some relatives demanded answers from my father and Patrick, while others accused me of jealousy and family disloyalty. My mother tearfully escorted my grandmother inside, claiming the excitement was too much for her. Patrick confronted me by the dessert table, his voice low but intense. You have no idea what you have just done. We had investors ready to commit 6 figures on Monday. All the more reason to stop this now before real damage is done, I replied. This is not a game, Patrick. People could lose their retirement savings. Dad could face legal consequences. You have always tried to keep me down, he hissed. Always the perfect son making me look bad. You could not stand the idea of me finally succeeding at something bigger than you. This is not success, I said quietly. It is a house of cards that would eventually collapse, hurting everyone involved, including you and our parents. He stormed off, slamming the back gate on his way out. Many guests followed soon after the celebration, effectively ruined. As the yard emptied, my father approached his expression, a mixture of anger and something else, something close to fear. You have always competed with your brother, he said, his voice strained. Always had to be the star. This is not about competition, Dad. This is about preventing a disaster. What you and Patrick are doing could cross into illegal territory. You need to make a decision, he said flatly. Either you support this family, including your brother's business, or you are choosing to stand apart from us. The ultimatum hung in the air between us, clear and final. I looked at my father, seeing for the first time, not the towering figure of my childhood, but a man whose love was conditional, whose support depended on compliance with his wishes, however unreasonable. I love you and Mom, I said finally. But I cannot support something I believe will harm everyone involved. If that means standing apart, then that is where I will stand. I left without waiting for his response. The drive home was strangely peaceful despite the enormity of what had just transpired. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly, the weight of impossible expectations finally lifted from my shoulders. The aftermath of Grandma's birthday confrontation brought a period of uncomfortable silence. My parents' daily calls abruptly ceased. My mother, usually active on social media, neither posted nor commented on my updates. Patrick blocked me on all platforms. His final message, a single-line text. Hope you are happy with what you did. The silence from my immediate family contrasted sharply with increased communication from others. Uncle Mark called to express his gratitude for my honesty. Your father and I had words after you left, he explained. I told him he was making a terrible mistake, both as a businessman and as your father. 2 cousins sent supportive messages, admitting they had been uncomfortable with the investment pressure, but unsure how to respond. My grandmother herself called her voice fragile, but determined. I wanted you to know, I am proud of you for speaking your truth, she said. Your grandfather built his business honestly, brick by brick. He would not have approved of shortcuts or misrepresentations. Her support meant more than she could know, a vindication from the family member whose opinion I respected most. Still, the estrangement from my parents left a painful void. Despite the righteousness of my position, I questioned whether the rupture could ever be repaired. The professional implications required immediate attention. I scheduled a meeting with my manager and the human resources director, explaining the situation frankly. My brother has been using my name and position to lend credibility to a questionable business venture. I want to be transparent about this and ensure it does not reflect poorly on the company. Both were understanding, but concerned. The HR director suggested documenting all unauthorized uses of my name or professional affiliation, while my manager advised notifying key clients with whom I had close relationships in case they were contacted. I consulted an attorney who specialized in business law, seeking advice on protecting myself from potential fallout. She confirmed my fears that what my family was doing could potentially constitute fraud, particularly if they were soliciting investments while misrepresenting the company's status and leadership. You were right to distance yourself, she advised. Document everything, especially any instances where your name was used without authorization. If any regulatory issues arise, you want a clear record showing you took reasonable steps to correct misrepresentations. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Uncle Mark called with troubling news. Your parents have taken out a second mortgage on their house, he revealed. About $200,000. Your mother told my wife it is for business expansion. The information sent a chill through me. My parents were in their early 60s with retirement on the horizon. Their home was their largest asset, the cornerstone of their retirement security. Leveraging it for Patrick's scheme put their future at serious risk. More concerning was learning they had begun approaching my father's business associates, including contractors, suppliers, and former clients from his construction company. These were people who trusted my father based on decades of legitimate business dealings now being targeted for investments in a fictional financial services company. The ethical dilemma kept me awake at night. Did I have a responsibility to warn potential victims about the scheme? Would intervening further damage any chance of reconciliation with my family? Was staying silent, making me complicit in potential fraud? After days of deliberation and another consultation with my attorney, I made the difficult decision to act. I could not directly contact people I did not know, but I could take steps to prevent harm while minimizing additional family conflict. First, I submitted an anonymous tip to the State Financial Regulatory Authority outlining the activities of Hamilton Family Enterprises and its lack of proper registration. I provided no names, only the business information that was publicly available. Second, I sent a carefully worded email to my father's business email address, which I knew his assistant monitored. I expressed concern about the second mortgage and the legal risks of soliciting investments without proper registration. I included links to relevant regulations and suggested consulting with a securities attorney before proceeding further. The message was respectful, but firm, offering a chance to course correct before lasting damage occurred. Finally, I updated my LinkedIn profile with a clear disclaimer. Please note, I am not affiliated with Hamilton Family Enterprises or any related investment opportunities. Any use of my name in connection with this entity is unauthorized. The response was swift and furious. Patrick called at midnight, clearly intoxicated again, leaving a rambling voicemail accusing me of sabotage. Investors are backing out left and right, he slurred. 3 people canceled meetings today. Said they received concerning information about regulatory compliance. This has your fingerprints all over it. My mother sent a single text. How could you do this to your own family? Nothing more. No opportunity for explanation or dialogue. Through Uncle Mark, I learned that the regulatory tip had triggered a preliminary inquiry. While not a formal investigation, it was enough to spook potential investors and force my parents to pause their solicitation efforts. The second mortgage funds remained untouched in their bank account, a small mercy that might allow them to unwind the transaction before funds were squandered. The weeks that followed were quiet but tense. I maintained my boundaries, neither reaching out nor responding to Patrick's occasional angry messages. I focused on my work, my home, and rebuilding the sense of peace that had been shattered by the family conflict. Gradually, I heard through the family grapevine that Hamilton Family Enterprises was being restructured. The website disappeared. The LinkedIn profiles were updated, Patrick's title changing from CFO to consultant. My father began telling relatives they were reconsidering the investment approach and focusing on smaller projects initially. It seemed the scheme was collapsing under the weight of scrutiny and reality, exactly as I had feared it would if allowed to proceed further. While I took no pleasure in being right, I felt profound relief that the situation was de-escalating before irreparable financial damage or legal consequences occurred. 6 months passed with minimal contact from my immediate family. The silence was painful, but also healing, allowing me space to reflect on the dysfunctional patterns that had defined our relationships for years. Without the constant pressure to validate Patrick or subordinate my needs to family demands, I found a new sense of peace and self-trust. My professional life flourished in the absence of family drama. I received a promotion to senior software engineer with a substantial salary increase and expanded responsibilities. My condo, the home I had fought to protect, became a true sanctuary. I completed additional renovations, creating a home office that overlooked the city skyline and remodeling the guest bathroom with my own hands. Friendships deepened as I invested time and energy previously consumed by family tensions. I joined a local hiking group, started volunteering at a coding workshop for underprivileged teens, and even began dating someone who respected my boundaries and ambitions equally. Throughout this period, I maintained contact with extended family members who had supported me, particularly Uncle Mark and my grandmother. They provided occasional updates about my parents, and Patrick carefully neutral in their delivery, but informative enough to keep me connected to family developments. On a rainy Tuesday morning in October, exactly 6 months after the confrontation at Grandma's birthday, an unexpected email arrived from my father. The subject line was simple: "Thinking of you." The message was brief, but significant. "Justin, I have been reflecting on our family situation these past months. While I still believe families should support each other, I recognize that the way we approached Patrick's business venture was problematic and put unfair pressure on you. The company has been officially dissolved, and we are working with Patrick on more appropriate career development. If you are open to it, perhaps we could meet for coffee sometime. Dad." The message contained no explicit apology, but from my father, this acknowledgement of problematic approaches was unprecedented. I waited 3 days before responding carefully, considering whether re-engagement was healthy. Eventually, I replied with an equally brief acceptance, suggesting a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Our meeting was awkward but civil. Dad looked older, the months of stress evident in new lines around his eyes. He explained that the regulatory inquiry had eventually escalated, forcing them to formally dissolve the company and return the small investments they had collected from relatives. "The second mortgage has been canceled," he assured me. "Your mother and I realized we were risking too much at our age." When I asked about Patrick, Dad sighed heavily. "That has been the hardest part. He took the company failure personally, blamed everyone but himself. But hitting bottom may have been necessary. He is working with a financial counselor, now learning basic budgeting and responsibility." That sounds like a positive step. I offered, genuinely pleased to hear of any movement toward reality and accountability. "He is still angry with you," Dad admitted, "but I have told him that your actions, while difficult to accept at the time, probably saved us from serious financial and legal consequences." We parted with a tentative plan to speak again the following week. Progress small but meaningful. 2 days later, I received a text from my mother: "Miss you. How are you doing?" Simple words, but from her significant. I responded with equal simplicity: "Doing well, miss you too." Over the following weeks, communication gradually increased. Short texts became occasional phone calls. My mother asked about my promotion. My father inquired about my latest renovation projects. Neither mentioned Patrick or Hamilton Family Enterprises directly, but the absence of pressure and manipulation was notable and welcome. Thanksgiving approached, raising the question of family gatherings. After careful consideration, I accepted my grandmother's invitation to dinner at her house, neutral territory, where all family members would be guests rather than hosts. I established clear boundaries in advance. No discussion of financial matters, no pressure campaigns, respect for everyone's personal choices. The gathering was not without tension, but it remained civil. Patrick attended briefly, maintaining physical and emotional distance from me. We exchanged polite nods but no conversation, an arrangement that felt appropriate for the current state of our relationship. My parents were reserved, but making visible efforts, commenting positively on my recent achievements and refraining from comparisons between their sons. As months passed, I continued individual therapy, gaining insights into the family dynamics that had shaped my responses and expectations. I learned to recognize unhealthy patterns without internalizing guilt or responsibility for others' choices. Most importantly, I developed stronger boundaries, able to maintain familial connections without sacrificing my own well-being or principles. My relationship with my parents gradually evolved into something new, more adult and mutual than our previous dynamic. We established a monthly dinner ritual, alternating between restaurants and their home, with clear understandings about acceptable topics and behaviors. They never again asked me to fund Patrick's ventures or sacrifice my financial security for family demands. Patrick himself remained distant, though Uncle Mark reported he had maintained steady employment at a retail management position for nearly 4 months, a personal record. He had moved into his own apartment, small but affordable, and was following the financial counselor's budgeting guidelines. These were modest steps, but significant given his history. The condo that had been the focal point of the conflict became even more meaningful as a symbol of my independence and boundaries. Each mortgage payment represented not just financial investment, but investment in my right to make autonomous decisions to create security on my terms. My grandmother, during a private lunch, perhaps summarized the lessons most clearly. "Family love should lift you higher, not drag you under," she said, patting my hand. "Your grandfather always said wealth built through shortcuts crumbles at the first strong wind. You built your life brick by solid brick, Justin. Never apologize for protecting what you have honestly earned." Her wisdom resonated deeply. The experience had taught me that genuine family support means respecting each member's autonomy and boundaries. That enabling unhealthy behavior is never truly helpful, even when disguised as loyalty or love. That sometimes the most caring action is refusing to participate in someone else's self-destruction. Most importantly, I learned that standing firm against manipulation, even when painful, creates the possibility for healthier relationships in the future. By refusing to sell my condo and fund my brother's scheme, I had not only protected my financial security, but also forced a necessary reckoning that might in time lead to growth for everyone involved. As I write this from the home office in my condo, watching sunset colors play across the skyline, I feel gratitude for the difficult journey. The peace I have now, both within myself and with my family, could never have come through capitulation or compromise of my core values. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family pressure regarding your finances or home? How did you handle it? And what boundaries did you establish to protect yourself? Share your experiences in the comments, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Financial manipulation in families is more common than many realize, and building this community of support helps everyone stand strong when facing similar challenges. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to say no when saying yes would harm everyone involved.